Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Tech with Sach. My name is Sachin, a Google developer expert. And in this episode, we're going to continue our Dialogflow CX series, where we have our special guest, Lee Boonstra from Google, joining us once again for another episode. And in today's session, we'll be covering more about conditional responses. And for people who are joining us for the very first time, make sure to hit that subscribe button as well as the bell icon so that you can be notified for future videos. So without further ado, let's get started.
Yeah, so thank you for having me back. I'm very excited as always. So what we did in the last couple of videos, we were creating our retail agent in the very first video, we created all the reusable parts or the resources. And in the last video, we were actually linking all these reusable resources all together. So we were really building like a tree, like a conversational flow.
Exactly.
And what we're gonna do today is we're gonna make our bot more luxury, and we're gonna do this with conditional responses. And what do I mean with that? Well, I remember times when I was using Dialogflow Essentials, and I wanted to have a more variable conversation. So for example, I wanted to have a custom greeting. I would say, for example, if the hours are below 12, then say good morning. And if it's higher than 12, then say good afternoon. These things in Dialogflow Essentials were pretty difficult to do. And it is because conditional templating wasn't built in the tool. And people have been building bots that could do these functionality with all various tools, like either they use their own templating systems in their own channels if you build a custom channel, or they just fetched all the responses from a webhook. But what we figured is that when you work in an enterprise or in a large business and you have whole groups of dedicated people working on certain workflows, like for example, like writing conversations for bots, that they might want to control the conversation and are probably capable to put some kind of conditional coding around their conversations or strings so that they control the conversation more. And that is good news, because in Dialogflow CX, conditional responses are supported. So what we will do, for example, is we will, in our static text responses, we will put some if-else blocks around it. And we could, for example, detect like, if the digital CD has been purchased, then I don't need to ask or showcase the address information, because that one will be sent to you over email. Mm-hmm. Where if you bought a t-shirt, then I'm going to confirm that I know your address information, for example. Right, so we're gonna do some branching off the conversation, and so what we're gonna do is switch back to our bot.
Yeah, definitely, and super excited for this as well, because I think over the first episode we covered a lot of concepts on how we how do we get started, what's the core difference between Dialogflow Essentials and CX. From there, in the first episode we also covered reusable components like with intents and entities. From there, we moved. In the second episode, we covered a lot more on pages, state handlers, all of those flows. So those were some important concepts. Now at this point, our chatbot is almost taking shape, where we are going to add in more. I would probably say we are taking the chatbot right now to the next level, right? Using conditional responses.
Yes. So let's get started.
Sure.
So here you see the code lab again. The code lab you can find in our description below, so you guys can all start building it. And we have the chatbot as how we left it off the last time. So as you can see here we have our nice catalog flow where everything is nicely linked to each other. Mm-hmm. Where you see the blue lines, these are the state handlers through an intent, and the orange lines, this is conditionals. So for example, Like you can only continue confirmation to order confirmation if we know what product has been chosen, and if in case of a t-shirt, then we also need the size, for example. But we also left some certain fulfillments empty. So for example, if we dive into the confirmation page, you see like we never put in an answer, and that is because these are the places where we will put our conditional blocks. So let's have a look. Let's see what we can do. Conditional blocks, they're kind of very easy to read. We use an if, else, and elif. Elif, that means like if it's not the first, if it doesn't fall in the first if, then it can chain to the next, till the next, and if nothing else is possible, then it falls into the else, and then you have to close it with end if. So we can use like little conditions, like we can do things like with numbers. So in the case of you could say like, well, if price is higher than 10, then we say it's expensive. If it's lower than 10, it's cheap. Those kind of things. You can also do things with dates. So you can return like date timestamp of now, and you can always format that. But what we will do is we will create a custom confirmation answer. And the confirmation answer, that looks different, because I mentioned it already. Like, if the product that you purchased is a CD or it's a digital album, then what we're gonna do is we're gonna tell them the CD of the Google Dolls cost, let's say $25. Shall I continue the order? Where if it's a t-shirt or a long sleeve, it will tell you the price of a t-shirt. And if it's a tour movie, then then it's not showing the shirt size, of course. It just shows the price. And I put an else in here. I don't think it will ever fall in this, because the way how we created our conditionals. But just in case something goes wrong, I created here a custom error message. I would say I did that more for myself to figure out if I ever end up in there. But I don't think we will ever get in there, because our conditionals are correctly set. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to go to the confirmation page. And in there, so I'm going to do it again. You click on the confirmation page, then you click on the edit fulfillment. And
so before we actually go on
dialogue.
and do this leak, can we backtrack? And for people who are joining us for the very first time, just so that we can kind of show like where we are in terms of the entire
yes. So you have the default flow. This is the start point. You come in here, and at this moment you would probably say, I want to know which artists are available, or I want to buy a t-shirt, or maybe you know already what you want to buy and you say, I want to order the tour movie of the Google Dolls. Regardless of what you say, you will jump into the catalog, likely into the catalog flow, and from here you jump in the conversation where you want to end. So either you ask for the artist overview, or you skip that whole part and you go directly to product. But once you have the product selected, you say I ordered the Google Dolls t-shirt size S, then we're moving or transitioning to the confirmation page, and this is the page that gives us a custom message. So you will click on edit fulfillment, and then you click on add dialog option. You cannot put it into the agent says field, because this takes a raw text string, but we want to add some code. So you select conditional response. This is important. And then you get like a little code editor, and this is where you can paste your code. And you see it recognized the if, else, if syntax, because that one is nicely colored purple. And I'm using to refer to session parameters, I use the dollar notation, $session.params, and then the param that I created customly. So that's what you would set here. Yeah. So make sure you save it. I'm also creating a custom payload here. And
so this is basically like once this condition is met, what needs to happen, right?
Yeah. So do you get it? This is just a nice message to give you a confirmation of what you're going to order, and you need to confirm in order to jump to the next part of to another flow, and we're going to the order process flow. That flow will ask us like, well, what's your name, what's your street address, etc. Now what we're going to do is we create 2 intent routes. So you click on the plus next to the routes, where one is confirm. Yeah, and because we already created all the reusable resources, we can just select it. And this one needs to transition to the order process flow. This is what I just told you. Like if you confirm the order, we'll go to the next flow. Save. And if you decline it, we'll just at this moment we'll just end the flow. That's the right way in a real world example. I don't know, maybe you want to ask users like, are you sure, or you want to change something, but in our case we're just going to end the flow. So you click here on the page, end flow. Save. So when the user declines the order, we will transition back to the welcome page, but then you actually have to clear all the parameters, because what you don't want is the next time when you start talking to the chatbot that it jumps again to that last confirmation node, or that your selection was already set. Because basically you should see this as a shopping cart, right? So basically the t-shirt and the artist name is still selected and is in your shopping cart already. So we need to clean that. So what we will do is in the decline proceed order intent, so I'm still in here, I saved it, but I'm still in there. I can create some parameter presets, and these presets are basically resetters, because I'm resetting everything to null. So like in this case, like the person did not want to confirm the order, so I'm resetting everything.
So again, just for our viewers, Lee, what is the benefit of us actually doing this specific method, right? Resetting everything back to null. When will this be useful from a conversational flow standpoint?
Not sure if I understand the question right, but if I would not do this, then you really have a broken interface the next time when I start the flow. And let's say if I start it tomorrow, it might be, I'm not sure how long sessions are stored within Dialogflow, but it's definitely if I would start over the flow again, then the album, the artist would have been selected. So you will never get that question like, hey, which artist do you want? Because it was set already.
So we are basically making sure that once a conversation is done, at least as long as the session is there, whatever the values that you have passed still remains. So the next time you want to interact with the bot, you want to make sure that all the parameters are cleared off so that you have a fresh start. Yeah.
Now, and in our bot, in our example, you can only order one product and then continue. If you want to build a functionality where you can order multiple products, like basically order 2 t-shirts and to a movie, you probably would rewrite certain parts. You probably would work with a temporary I would work with a temporary parameter here, like probably the way how we designed it, and create another parameter that's basically like a bucket or collection where I would add everything to.
It's like adding it to the cart. Similarly, you're just adding all of those into like a temporary.
And I think in real world scenarios, you probably would send it somewhere to a database or something, because you want to typically store this on the server. Like even if your computer would crash at this moment, you would start it again, or maybe on a different device, and you ideally want to give back whatever was in the shopping cart. But that's all advanced. We're not doing that here. Here we're just showing the purpose of using parameters and also resetting it if you deviate from the flow. Yeah. So notice also that we used a parameter called restart, and I set that to true. And I did this on purpose because I wanted also that the welcome message would be a little bit different, because at this moment I assume that people already know like the type of questions you can ask the bot. So it's slightly different, or you could say like welcome back. Yeah, I can just check that based on the restart parameter. I've seen that it's true, so I know that the user has been using it before. Yeah. So I can save this, and now I can go back to the default start flow, and I select the start page, and from there I create a conditional route. So this is custom what we're going to create. Hold on. Am I missing? No. Yes, I click here on routes, and from there I go to conditions. The condition is if the session params restart is true. Just paste it in there. Then the fulfillment will be, yeah, welcome back. Welcome back. How can I help?
Yeah. So what Lee is actually doing here at this point is to make sure that if you have returning users who are interacting with your bot, so instead of like every time the same conversation like the welcome message, here the bot already knows that you've interacted with it once. So with this condition, checking whether this value exists, if this condition is met, that means this is like the same user returning. So let's have a different welcome message.
And what I did again is now I put again the custom payload here for in case you use the web channel, that you see the nice buttons again, like, oh, which artists are there, or what products do you have. Yeah, so hit save. I'm gonna add one more nice thing, and that is I go back to the start page and the welcome flow and the default start flow. That's where I'm at, and I click the redirect end intent. Look it up. Here, there it is. And here I also create a custom fulfillment. So I mean, like every time when a customer ends the session, just like, yeah, we're done, I don't want to order anything anymore, then you get a nice goodbye message. So thank you for contacting G Records. Have a nice day. And hit save. Before we test this, let's also just fix the price page. So if we go back here to the catalog flow, and then you should see the price node that we had here. And if you can recall, in the previous video, we the fulfillment to do. It's right. Of course not a real message, because at that moment we thought like, yeah, we don't know yet what the prices are. So we'll do this on a later moment. That's what we're going to do now. We will create some logic here where we say like, well, if it's category is shirts, then we can tell people like a t-shirt costs 25 and a long sleeve costs 30. If the category is music, then we can say the CD costs 15 and the album costs 10. And else we can say a t-shirt costs 25, a long sleeve 30, a CD costs 15, digital album on MP3 10. And in case of the tour MP, it's 25. So what I'm doing here is just like every time you can, because you can get to the price page from various moments in time, right? I can go directly to a price page, and I would ask like, well, what do things cost at your shop? And it tells me all the prices. Where if I already mentioned like, yeah, well, I'm interested in buying a shirt, but I'm not interested in what the tour movie costs. So that's why I'm giving here a custom message. So to do this, what you will do is we will copy this code, and we paste it in here in the conditional response. So again, not in the agent says, but in the conditional response block there, and then you hit save. Okay, now we should have completed our catalog flow. I think this is a
Awesome.
nice moment to test it again. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yep.
let's go ahead and test and see where we are
Yeah.
with our virtual agent.
Yes. And just to recall, like where we're most interested is like asking the prices. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a test case where we ask various times for the price, whether we order shirts or music. And I'm also interested in like how the confirmation would look like for whatever product we're ordering. Let's test it in our integration, because that always looks nicer.
Yeah, definitely.
There we go. All right. Say hi. So welcome. So let's just call first to the full flow again. So which artists are available? Well, we have the Alice Googler. Alice Googler, great choice. We sell shirts, music, and the tour movie. Which merchandise item do you want? Shirts. Do you want a long sleeve or t-shirt? At this moment, I want to know, well, what's the price between either of these? It tells me a t-shirt costs 25, a long sleeve costs 30. Which one do you want? T-shirt. Okay. Let's just select it. We continue the flow. Here you see the custom confirmation message. A t-shirt of Alice Kugler costs size S, costs 25. You see that I'm here telling all the parameters that I selected. Like I have like here the artist name.
Right.
I know the product. It's a t-shirt. I know the size and I know the price. We want to continue the order. Yes. Okay. All right. Now let's give it one more try. But now I'll ask a couple of different questions to the bot. And we will see different conditional responses this time.
Sure.
So I hit try it now. Try it. Hi. Which products do you have? We sell shirts, music, or the tour movie. From which of these artists would you like to order merchandise? I say the Foo Fighters. Which merchandise album or item do you want? Well, what does it cost? And it tells me a t-shirt costs 25, a long sleeve 30, CD 50, digital album 10, and in case you're interested in the tour movie, that one is 25. So you see like now it's really telling me all the different prices. And then it continues with the question, like, well, which item do you actually want? Let's say I want, this time I want the tour movie. All right, tour movie of the Google. Let's go.
Awesome. So I think you can see how our virtual agent is trying to get smarter right now. It's just not a very static kind of a response. Now it's a little more dynamic. So as a user, you get to see all the options, how much each one costs, and then so we are almost mimicking like a real world scenario.
All right. So now we're almost done. I'm just gonna wrap up this agent to make it more finalized, because right now, we created like a whole working catalog, but we're not collecting any user details yet in order to make the purchase. So that's what we're gonna do in the my order flow. And then I created some other example flows here, for example, customer care, in case you have questions about your products, etc. So let's continue and build this. This is more of the same as what we have done before. We will go to the new flow, my order, and in this flow I am gonna create a bunch of intent transitions. So you go to the routes, you select the intent. In this case it's a redirect, my order, and I want to transition to the my order page. And that one doesn't exist yet. We're gonna make it. So my order. Now we need more routes. We also need the redirect, my order status. And we bring that to the status page. cancelled. The redirect end. This one ends the full session. And we have the redirect to home. This is basically if people say go back, basically we go back to the main menu. That one ends the flow, closes the flow, so you're hopping back to the default start flow. And then if we are in the default start flow, we need to be able to move to the my order flow. So that's what we're going to do next. So we are in the default start flow. We click on the start page. Here I'm creating 2 more routes. Redirect. It's the same route as before, but it's basically, it works like a, but it forwards you to the right flow, like navigation. In this case, the flow would be my order.
So anything to do with the order, basically, while you're starting the conversation from the start of the flow, it would directly flow into this specific.
Yes. This is for people that want to know, like, I have questions about my order.
Exactly.
Like, what is the status? Has the t-shirt already been shipped?
And this is why I love this code lab, this virtual agent that we're building, because it's almost mimicking most of the scenarios that users would need for their bot. So you guys can technically use this as a template, spice it up based on your products, and basically use this video as your learning process or a template to actually get this done.
Sometimes I notice that the UI could be a bit laggy. If that's the case, I just refresh the page and then it works. So now I click the My Order page, and here we will create a bunch of parameters because we need an order number. Yeah, and the entity type we already created. So this is just order number. Required needs to be checked. We need to have an initial prompt fulfillment. It tells me, like, well, what's the order number? Like, if you have a question like, well, what's the status of my order? Then it will ask you, well, what is the order number? For example, ABCD 1, 2, 3. And that's also the regular expression that we used in the previous video.
So it's almost like, let's say I've already gone through the virtual agent, I've done an order, and I come back and I just want to see, hey guys, like, what's the status on my order? Where is it at this point? Right? So now with this, whatever you've added right now with this prompt, it's basically the bot is telling you, okay, I can get that information. What's the order number? This is the, for example, this is the format that I'm expecting.
Yeah. And the nice thing eventually will be if I would ask, like, hey, what's the status of my order? My order number is ABCD 1, 2, 3. Then it won't ask me that question because it already told you what it was. So it doesn't need to prompt me for this to collect the parameter. This is the reason why we're putting these questions in the parameter fulfillment. So what I'm doing now is I make a no match event. So in case people say, like, well, what is the status of my order? Enter, 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 and they never tell you or they give me an order number in the wrong format. Then there is no match. So it will ask me again, like, well, to proceed with your order, I will need an order number. And order numbers start with 4 characters and end with 3 numbers, such as ABCD 1 to 3. Which order number may I use? Save. And then for the no input, that is in case people didn't specify anything. And I can tell them, like, well, hey, I missed that. In order to continue look up your order. I need.
This is kind of useful, guys, especially when you're dealing with telephony. So when your user is actually like having this conversation not via your website or through the messenger, but directly over a phone call. So at that point, when this question is asked, and it happens to most of us, we just pause for a second, we think, and sometimes we might not give back the response in time. At that point, what happens is behind the scenes, the no input is matched. Event handler is triggered. So then it will repeat the question again, or you can ask the question in a different manner. So you have complete control over that. Am I right, Lee?
Yeah, this is a nice thing that you mentioned that, because I really took a voice first approach by designing this agent. Of course, I made like all these nice rich snippets, like these bullets underneath, but I took like the voice as really like steering the conversation. And I was surprised, but actually not so surprised, that when I tested this t-shirt agent on the phone, like in the phone gateway integration that's built in Dialogflow CX, it worked perfectly. I could complete the flow without any mistakes, and I was like so impressed, because that is the magic of taking a voice-driven approach first. So
definitely. And for all of you who are really looking forward to that, make sure to subscribe to this channel, hit that like button, and if you have any questions for us, leave that in the comment section so that we can cover some of those in the next episode. And as Lee mentioned, we'll also be covering testings and integrations in the next tutorial. So stay tuned for that, where we would actually go through live scenarios. So coming back to this tutorial, Lee. So at this point, we kind of have covered, we're starting to like add all the different conditions, right? When it comes to like order.
Yeah. So what I'm doing now is I'll create like a conditional route to make sure, like, well, if I have the order number, in this case, that is like if all the parameters have been captured. So if the status is final, then you get this question like, well, okay, I found your order. What do you want me to do? Do you want me to cancel the order, or do you want to look up the status? And again, because this is a voice first driven approach, I will add some event state handlers here to make it look nicer. So save. Let's see, where did I do that? Am I missing something? Hold on. I guess I probably went into yes, no, it tells me exactly what I have to do. So I click on add state handler, event state handler. I hit apply, and now I'm creating additional state handlers here. I'll first start with the no input. So when the user doesn't tell me anything, it will prompt me again, like, well, I'm sorry, what was that? Would you like me to cancel the order or look up the status? And then I can create some custom payload again, because in case this is a web integration, then it is nice to show these nice buttons, as you've seen when I'm testing the bot, and I can very quickly go through the bot. That is because I just created all these buttons, so I don't need to type it all out. It's really nice. Hit save. We're gonna always, when I use a no input, I also always use a no match. And again, the difference between one and the other, no input is like no input was given, so you hit in the web enter, and nothing came in, or like there was like on the phone there was a break and nothing has been said. Where no matches, I did say something or I did type something, but
just doesn't match.
There was no match.
Right.
No. And the no matched one, and I think eventually you have to no match 2, 3. It's like after every try, like you want to customize the message, so you don't always hear the same error message.
Because in ideal scenarios, it is also good practice to add those no match default, no match 1, and a step further as well, just because sometimes the user might not get it right in the first try. They might also might do a might get it wrong in the second try as well. So based on that, these conditions, event handlers, you can basically handle, okay, if there's no match for the first time, you can give in a specific response. Then the user gives the response again. If it still doesn't match, you can kind of navigate the user to a different message and then take it from there. So these are like important tools that's directly available for you. And as we mentioned earlier in the previous episodes as well, it's a good design practice. It's good practice to kind of follow the conversation design guidelines. So all of that is mentioned in that specific guidelines as well. What are the good things? There's even like a checklist, if I'm right, Lee. So there's like a conversation design checklist. So before you start or while writing your initial script, you can go in and see whether it is actually checking off all of those checklists as well.
That's a really good best practice, I would say, to work with a checklist like this. Yeah.
And the other important point, Lee, which you brought up, is it is always better. I mean, just to make sure that your entire conversation is future proof, it is always better to build the entire conversation keeping in mind that the user is actually interacting with you via voice. So let's imagine that the user is actually speaking to your bot rather than actually interacting via website. So keep that in your mind, and then you design your conversational flow. Then once that is done, once that framework is set, then you can start thinking about, okay, now that same conversation, if it is there on my website, how that would look like. Then you can add in all of those custom responses, rich responses through the payload.
Yep.
Okay.
What I'm gonna do next is I'm gonna create the my order and the cancellation page, and it's more of the same as what I just did. So you probably want to speed this up. Yeah. Yeah, and here, so I tell the customer, like, okay, the order has been shipped. It can take 2 weeks before you receive your items. And then I end with a follow-up question, like, is there anything else I can help you with? Because again, if this was a conversation on voice, you don't want to end your conversation there, because people don't hear on the other side people asking questions, so they would be quiet. If you steer the conversation and say, like, well, is there anything else I can help you with? No, that's it. Okay, then goodbye, and close the flow.
Right. So that's also another important point that Lee brought out. These are places where the conversation design guidelines kick in. Always make sure that your conversations are close-ended, in the sense like you're directing a user towards a specific action rather than just keeping it like open-ended, right? So you don't want to like just say like, your order is processed. That's it. So what next, right? So if your bot just gives you that response, it's just not asking you for any questions, so you're done answering. So it's basically left at that point. What's also crucial is, apart from just being a good practice, it's also important that since this is a virtual bot related to retail, you want to make sure that you have the user buy more of your items. So you want to make sure that, okay, so you bought this, would you like to order some more? Or, how can I help you with any other order? So you should always keep that in mind when you're designing your conversations.
Yeah, good point. So you see that the cancellation page is quite similar to the status one. Like, the only difference here is that it has a different message. and I only tell the message if I know the order number. And in a real life example, of course, this would be actually a webhook where you connect to a backend to figure out like, hey, what happens with my order number? And then it would return you the message in text form.
Right.
Yeah. We can test it now. So let's say hi, welcome. I'm the G Records virtual record label bot. How can I help? I have a question about my order. What's the order number?
Perfect.
The order number is ABCD124. And do you want to cancel your order, or should I look up the status? So look up the status. Your order 124 has been shipped. It can take approximately 2 weeks before you will receive your items. Is there anything else I can help you with? No, that's it. And we need to create a follow-up here. It just closes the flow.
So ending the conversation should be added at this point. So yeah. Wonderful. So you could also see like now we've kind of handled all the order status. So that's perfectly covered at this point. So what are we covering nextly? I mean, we've come a long way in terms of, where we started from.
Yes.
Creating this virtual bot.
Before we continue, I will fix this order flow by just saying the goodbye message. And then what we will do is we will create some negative intent.
Right.
I'll dive into that in a couple of seconds. Let me finish this, and then we'll read through it together and see if we can
definitely
add that, because it's another luxury item, I would say, to make our bot nicer. So what we do here is we click the start page again. Again, if you have problems with the UI, just reload it, and then select the start node. Redirect end, and here we also put like a thank you, fulfillment, and let's say, then we go to the redirect home, and in the redirect home we say restart is true, so that it would trigger when you go back to the default start flow, that it would trigger the custom welcome message. So. All right, so now let's look into the negative intent. So what you can do is you can create training phrases for your NLU that will act as negative examples that will automatically detect the no match event. And there might be cases where you want to do this, where because of a slight resemblance to training phrases in normal intents, but you don't want these inputs to trigger normal intents. So for example, let's try in the simulator. Hi, I don't like Alice Googler. Now what happens is I don't like Alice Googler. It thought that I selected Alice Googler to buy a t-shirt, right. But I don't like Alice Googler. So it should never get into this intent. And that is basically what you can fix with a negative intent. So if you would say, I don't like Alice Googler, or I'm not a fan of Teas and Roses, then nothing will happen, or maybe you get a custom message saying like, well, that's fine. Why don't you try one of these other artists?
Right.
Yeah. So let's have a look and see how you can do that.
So at this point, we are kind of like fine-tuning our NLU to kind of like better fine-tune so that it can handle all different scenarios. So as even before moving towards this negative intents, as Lee showed, what's happening right now is, even though she said I don't like Alice Googler, it's still it's at this point the bot is thinking that okay, the user is talking about Alice Googler, so let me actually move on to the next set of conversations where I'm trying to sell products of Alice Googler. Now, we don't want to do that. So in this case, what we are trying to do is we are also going to train the bot to understand what are the negative things. So that's exactly what Lee mentioned, and she's going to show us how we can handle that using default negative intents.
And of course, this is a funny example, but I think in real life there are use cases where, especially if, like in a banking bot, for example, if you could say I want to close my account versus I want to block my card, you don't want by accident to close your account when you block a card,
right?
Things like that. So we are in the manage intent screen, and here we will create a new intent. So select the default negative intent, and this is whatever I add here as training phrases will always cause a no match event. So remember that in our flows we created lots of no match events where it says like, well, I need to know the order number, I need to know the artist name in order to continue. It won't trigger that, or it will trigger that those events when you create a negative intent.
Mm-hmm.
So in this case, I don't like Alice Googler, but it will say, well, but I do need a bed name in order to order a t-shirt. And again, it will recognize Alice Googler as an entity type artist. Not fan of Jeeves and Roses. I can't stand the Google Dolls. And to be really safe, or when you're training intents and you're making use of custom entities here, it's good to create training phrases that hold each of the variances of the entity, because you don't want to bias your training phrases here. But if you always use Alice Googler, then you're biasing the machine learning model, that pretending that people never like Alice Googler. But if you would say I'm not a fan of the Go Fighters, then it would not be triggered because it was never trained with occasions like that. So try to use all the entities, and I would say in best practice more than once.
So I think you kind of touched upon a very important concept here, Lee, is about training phrases. So this is something that a lot of people would have some questions about, especially what is the optimal set of training phrases, right? So is it 4, is it 5, is it 10, is it 100? So what do you think is the most optimal set of training phrases that the users can give?
I think there is a page on our documentation that explains it. I don't know the exact number out of my head, but I thought it was between around 20. But if you use custom entity types, then you want to do times each entity type. So then you can end up with lots of training phrases.
Right. And one of the other things is definitely check out the documentation for that. And one of the other aspects of this is when you're training phrases, also make sure you don't overtrain with a lot of specific same set of queries that you might have in different intents, right? So that's something that you want to completely avoid as part of best practices. But yes, you need to have at least a decent amount of training data for your bot to actually handle real case scenarios.
All right, we're gonna do another nice feature, and these are the default fallback messages. So if we go to the default start flow in the build section, and then if you go to the start page, and you see here there are two event handlers already been set, and these are basically the custom fallback messages where you would come in. It basically means like no text or speech answers were detected, so likely no answers were given, or the system couldn't hear it.
Right.
And therefore we need to make our fallback messages more specific. So by default, you can see that Dialogflow already put some fallback messages in here. I think as a conversational designer, we can do a better attempt. So I'm going to remove them all, and I'm going to create my own fallback text. And in case of a no input, I really want to make sure that the user understands, like, I didn't hear anything, or it's not, because it's not the same as a no match. It's really like, it's like there was no answer, or no answer came in.
Right.
So that is also what I'm with my fallback messages basically will tell me, like, I couldn't hear what you were saying. What was that? Or I'm sorry, I missed the answer. What was that?
So you're kind of like being very specific at this point.
Exactly. Right. Where in the by default, I think it's just a mixed bag of all the fallback messages. But this is more specific. And again, if you take a voice-driven design, this makes more sense. So I did that for the no input, and we're gonna do the same for the no match. I go into the default fallback of the no match, I clear them all, and then I'm gonna create my own texts. For the no match, it's like, I didn't get that, can you please rephrase? So can you say it in a different way? Because I couldn't make the match. Maybe if you say it in a different way, I can make a match. And this is a standard catch-all. So, but on intent level, you can even make it more specific, right? Because if you know, like, at this moment, I want to know, like, do you want to order a t-shirt or music? I could really make a custom fallback message saying, like, I didn't hear if you're interested in ordering music or a shirt. You steer it even better, the conversation. Save. Tells me you can, ideally you would want to fix this for each flow. So also in catalog, my order process, and customer care, you would do the same. Now we're going to go to the order process flow. And what we will do in this flow is we will capture all the user details in order to make a purchase. And our example is not making use of a real payment system or database. There's no database behind it. It's just static text, but it's going to show you how you would design the flow in Dialogflow CX.
Perfect. So I think probably we'll come down to this question once we are done building this order process flow, Lee, because I'm sure a lot of our viewers are like thinking, okay, now we've come to the most crucial point of the whole transaction, right? So how do we take it from the bot, and how can I get my payment or the transaction done? So we'll definitely kind of touch upon that once you're done with the process flow, because then it will be even more clear and how we can kind of approach different techniques.
Exactly, because we all want to make some money, right? So we need to get the details for that. What we're going to do now is we go to the order process flow. And again, this is an empty flow because we haven't been working on it. And we start with the very basics. We create with the end and the go back home. So the end session and the end flow. And we can do this by creating a route. And a route is an intent route. We already have these reusable resources made. So you can say a redirect end. The redirect end goes to the end session. And I think if you really want to do this nice, then you say, okay, thank you, goodbye. Thank you for contacting G Mortgages. Oh, sorry, G Records. Yeah, am I having another popped in my mind? So thank you for contacting G Records. Say, G Mortgages is another project I'm building. Redirect home, and this one I would end the flow. And I think what we have been doing all the time when we end and go to the home, we would set the restart. It's true. I think later in the steps we refer to it, but then we already done this. I hit save. Now I want to remember that when we were in the my order process, in the catalog flow, and we came on the confirmation page, it gave us this custom message, and then you had like the button, yes, I confirm, or you had to literally say like, this is correct, I want to confirm the order. That is the intent that triggers the next flow. Hence why we're creating here an intent saying confirm proceed order. And this one will go to a new page because it doesn't exist. A new page is called shipping details. Let's save. Then you go to the shipping details page. You can see now the flow has been created. This is the one we're most interested in. And we get an entry fulfillment. It says like, yeah, in order to complete your order, I will need to collect your shipping details. And then all these shipping details are parameters with no match and no input messages. That way is, again, like if I happen to mention it all in one go, it probably would collect them all for me. But if it waits for it, then it really goes by each question one after another. So let's hit save, and we are going to the parameters section, and here now we're going to create a bunch of parameters. We'll start with the first name, and these are system entities. So that means these are entities that are part of Dialogflow we can make use of. And I do have to say, like, system entities in general, they depend a bit on the location where your agent exists, and maybe even also based on the language. If you have an English bot, probably it all works. But since I'm Dutch, I know this. There are certain entities that they're not available in Dutch language. I don't think we in the Netherlands have a zip code. We have postal code. Yeah, and there are always slightly differences between entities, and you can find these in the documentation. It has to be required, so if the user is not passing it in, we can explicitly ask for this. And that's what we do in the initial prompt. What's your first name? And then to have a voice-driven approach, we'll create the no match and the no input messages. And again, I think this is something we might want to speed up because it's a whole bunch of the same things.
So at this point, it's the same process. We are just gonna go ahead and add the remaining parameters and the appropriate responses for each of those when there is like an initial prompt fulfillment response, the no match default, and the no input default. So we'll be doing that for each of the parameters, and then we'll continue from there.
All right, so all the parameters have been created.
Mhm.
Now, again, we create a conditional route where we just need to make sure that all the parameters have been collected. That is what we need in order to continue the shipping or the purchase.
Mhm.
And then we create a fulfillment. And what we're going to do here is we will fake it,
Mhm.
because we will pretend that we're making use of a Google Pay API
Mhm.
that automatically links it on your phone, your email, your Google email address to a Google Pay account, and automatically will do the payment. But this is not the case in real life. And I think that's also what you were bringing up earlier, right, Saj? Like,
Right.
how would you do this in a real world scenario? I think as if you're a company, or you probably already have a working website or a web shop where you already have APIs for handling the payment, and the conversational layer, like the chatbot or the voicebot, just needs to behave the same way as what the website would do. Because in the website, you're also collecting parameters, right? Only then you fill it out in fields. Now we're asking it in follow-up questions, like what's your name, what's your address? We collect that, we put that in the payload, and we send that to the server. And in real life, then the server needs to collect these, or get this from the JSON response, send it to the payment server, and then do something with it and return the results.
Yeah. So adding to what Lee mentioned, there are different techniques that we can approach in the way how you kind of can approach this. So let's say we've done all the hard work, we've gathered all the information from the user, what they want to buy, which item, which size, all of that is covered. And then finally we capture all the information from the user, like name, email address, phone number, the shipping details, all of that. Once we've captured that information, you already have all of these values with you. So there's two ways you can do it. One is like how Lee mentioned, you can use like an API behind the scenes. It's completely up to you on which payment gateway that you use. That is one approach. The other approach is if you already have an existing e-commerce website or your own website where you're adding items to your cart, what you can do is towards the end of this conversation, exactly where Lee is right now, you can actually gather all that information, create a link which will then redirect the user from the bot directly to the payments page. And when it goes to the payments page, you already have all the information already pre-filled, which was captured from the bot, and the user can just go through with the traditional approach of payment processing. So that's one way of doing it as well. So you don't have to make it too complicated with a different workflow. You can kind of integrate it within your existing ecosystem itself.
Yeah, and it makes sense, right? Because Google Dialogflow is not handling payments. I mean, that's your payment server does. So
Right.
hence why we're just collecting all the steps that we need in order to continue a purchase. But for this demo, we're just pretending that it's connected to Google Pay, and because we don't want to work on webhooks yet. Maybe one of our follow-up videos will. But
Definitely.
for now, it's just this. So what we're going to be doing here is saying like, all right, Lee, we will make use of Google Pay, and that's connected to the email account, blah, whatever I am. And I am adding here again a custom conditional response, because if I ordered the digital album, then I don't need to ship any items to an address, because then it will be shipped to an email address. So that is what we're branching off here. We're telling the user, like, if it's not the digital album, shipping costs an additional $5. This will make the total price. Now what I'm going to do is I'm using some code in my conditional response that adds 5 on top of the price. And we'll turn to that. And your merchandise will be shipped to this address. And the address what you just passed in. To continue the order process, explicitly say, I confirm.
Right.
And if it is the digital album, you don't need to pay shipping costs, and it will be sent to your email address through a link will be sent. That's what this message does. Here I hit save, and remember here step 7 and 8. I already did that there. I think I did that. Let me just double check. Yeah. So as you can see, the redirect home is already has restart true, and if I go to redirect end, I have the end message. Yeah. All right. I think at this moment we can test our agent in the simulator and see what we have done so far.
Awesome. I think we've come a long way in terms of where we kind of started, just with a simple default start flow, and I think our virtual agent is complete at this point. And let's go ahead and test it out, Lee.
So I click on test agent. This time I'm testing it in the simulator, and I'm doing that because I really am curious to see which parameters have been gathered while I'm specifying the answers, and you can see that really nice in the simulator. So let's trigger the bot again. I say, hi, how can I help with artists? From which of these artists would you like to order merchandise? I like Alice Googler. Okay, we sell shirts, music, or the tour movie. Which merchandise item do you want? Shirts. Do you want the long sleeve over the t-shirt? I want the t-shirt. What size do you want? I want M. A t-shirt of Alice Kugler size M costs $25. Shall I continue the order? Yes. Confirm. Okay. To complete your order, I will need to collect your shipping details. What's your first name? Let's say the first name is Lee. What's your last name? My last name is Boonstra. What's your address? What's the postal code that you use? What's the name of the city? I live in Amsterdam, and that's part of the Netherlands. Lastly, what's your email address? That's a fake email address, so don't email me at that one. And now you see, it rephrases everything.
Right.
Gives me the custom message, all right, Lee, we will make use of Google Pay that's connected to your account, lee@lee.nl. Shipping costs an additional $5. Hey, something went wrong here. We'll figure that out later. What went wrong here? Maybe they changed the API. So we'll sort it out. Because normally what it should do is it should tell me the total price. Your merchandise will be shipped to, and then my address. And to confirm, I explicitly need to say I confirm. You want to confirm your Alice Google t-shirt. I'm not sure if we did that, but what you can see here is all the parameters.
All the parameters have been captured.
Yeah.
So this is exactly where we were kind of discussing before, because now that you have all of these details, you can basically pass this to your backend, or generate a link that you can provide as a response at this point, where when the user clicks on it, takes them directly to the payments page if you want to integrate with your existing payment methods.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So I think, Lee, that's a wrap up for this part of the episode. We have a lot more for you guys. We've started this whole Dialogflow CX series. And the purpose of this video basically is not just, we want to make sure that you kind of understand all the nuances in building a good conversational virtual agent. And I think to some extent, Lee has done a fantastic job in covering all of those aspects as well. At the same time, if you're thinking of building this for your own company, your own website, you can use this as a template and kind of like build on top of this. And you can also use this as a video documentation highlighting all of the different features of CX, what you need to do, pro tips, all of that will be mentioned as well. So if you guys did enjoy this video, make sure to hit that like button as well as subscribe if you're new to this channel. And Lee, once again, thank you so much. In the next episode, we'll be covering about integrations and more about testing.
Yes, that's correct. I'm looking forward.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Take care and stay safe.